What's going on YouTube? It's Giga here, and today we are bringing you 5 Series 12 rental teams to really help you start dominating the start of this season. So before we hop into it, I just want to talk a little bit about the structure, because we are doing things a little bit differently. Historically, it's just been 5 teams at the beginning of the month, and the idea, like around 5 teams, and the idea is we change them out every month. But because of the fact that we're in Series 12 for so long, I wanted to try and do things a little bit different. So what we're going to do instead is these first 2 teams, they are going to be more of best of 3 teams, and they're going to be iterated on, hopefully every month. So the idea is that we start with it, and then it changes over time, and if there's no change, it means it's the same way, just so I can really see how the meta adapts. And I wanted to make things that are better suited for best of 3, because historically I've built for best of 1. So like I said, these first 2 teams, they're going to be best of 3 teams. That are going to change over the months, and then the other teams are going to just be best of 1 and more for fun and kind of less competitive. Also, we are going back to each team is only available for a month, so if you want to grab any of them, the rental code will be live until the next video, in which case they'll be taken down. Also, we are bringing back the damage calc stock that historically I've used. I thought it was really helpful, especially now with us being in the team for so long. Just having that calc there is, I think, really important. So the first team is the Zoopals. We have used this team before, but there are some changes. Most notably, we are adding Ferrothorn over Rillaboom. And so I think the reason for adding Ferrothorn is I just felt like Ferrothorn is a much better answer to a lot of things in the meta. Power Whip is very good. We still have the answer to Calyrex and Knockoff. So I just really like that. I think Gyro Ball being so important with the amount of speed control that's happening. So I thought that adding Ferrothorn was a really big deal. But let's talk a little bit about the team as a whole. So first of all, we do have Zacian. This is a fairly bulky Zacian, mainly just with the idea that we want to be able to set up substitutes and stall out Dynamax turns. So we are going to be able to outspeed Thundurus. I thought Thundurus was really the important benchmark to hit. I know it means that we don't outspeed Alecki at -1, so that's a little bit of a trade-off and something that I might iterate on in the next version of this team. But it is pretty standard set with Substitute, Iron Head, and Sacred Sword. I know that Play Rough has become very popular now, mainly because of Palkia, but I think we do have enough answers for Palkia that I'm not really worried about it. And also, like I said, I think that this is probably the best Zacian set that I thought made sense for this team, because this is a more balanced team, and so having a Zacian that can sit around and take hits is important. Next up, we do have Kyogre. This is a Choice Scarf Kyogre. It is pretty standard. It is max special attack, max speed, timid. The idea is we want to outspeed a lot of common restricteds and just hit really hard with Water Spout. Getting almost a KO onto Zacian is huge. Being able to KO Calyrex is huge. Being able to just overall tank a lot of hits, I thought was really important. So pairing up with Kyogre, next up we do have Kingdra. So this is our Life Orb user of the team and also our main form of speed control. Using Swift Swim, we do have the ability for max Airstream to boost our speed, and we also do have Icy Wind in the event we don't want to max Kingdra, but we also do want to have some speed control. So this is another change that we made to the team, saying, hey, let's opt for Icy Wind instead. We are speed creeping things at 139 that want to outspeed Regieleki and Tailwind. So we are at 140, giving us just that slight little bump, which hopefully can make a little bit of a difference. So next up, we do have Zapdos. This is a really bulky Zapdos, which I thought made a lot of sense. We are mainly trying to be able to sit on the field long, which is why we have Roost. I know that a lot of people have opted for a fully offensive Zapdos, which I think is great. I think Zapdos is just unquestionably one of the hardest hitting Pokemon in the format, but really this was another Zacian answer that I wanted, mainly because of the fact that in the rain, we aren't going to be getting Incineroar's Flare Blitzes quite as strong. So saying, hey, we can roost up against your Zacian and also fire off big Thunderbolts, I thought was really important. So we do have a good answer into the mirror, right? We can deal with Kyogre very well. We can deal with Zacian very well. And it helps against the Zapdos mirror, right? Having Roost, where a lot of them don't, says, hey, we can recover off a lot of this damage. So I thought that was important. So next up, we do have Incineroar. This is also a little bit different from the original variant. This is now a more defensive variant. I thought the set is pretty straightforward. Throat Chop for Calyrex, Fake Out because it's Fake Out, Parting Shot to pivot out, and then Flare Blitz, really for opposing Zacians and a good source of damage. So by changing this up, I'm still guaranteeing that it is a 4-hit KO from an Astral Barrage from a Life Orb Calyrex, which I thought was important, right? Like that in my mind is one of the only calcs that matter on the special side, because I feel like a lot of special Pokemon, you know what you're going to get, whereas on the physical side, it can be a little bit different. So trying to opt for good physical defense to deal with opposing Zacian, I thought was really huge. And finally, we do have Ferrothorn. This Ferrothorn was based off the team that won, I forget what tournament. It was the recent one which Paul Ruiz took second. I used the same spread. I thought that Assault Vest Ferrothorn made a lot of sense. And the reason I opted for it over Rillaboom is I just thought it gave me a little bit of a better defensive answer. And also Gyro Ball, like I said, being able to do a ton of work is just overall really great. We have a very good chance of KOing Kyogre. We have a very good chance of 2-hit KOing Incin and taking advantage of the rain, right? If we catch an Incin on the switch, hit it with Body Press, and then fire off another one, we are going to be able to win that battle. So I just thought it was really important. We're still hitting the big survivals with things like Calyrex-Shadow. We also are still able to survive hits from Zacian, which is something that Rillaboom cannot do. It just goes down straight to a Behemoth Blade, whereas now we do have a better answer. Sacred Sword, in the most part, is a 2-hit KO. We do have to be a little bit wary of close combat, but we do have things like Incineroar to get the attack drop. We also do have Zapdos, like I said, and also our own Zacian. So this is the first team. It is, like I said, a team more oriented for best of 3s instead of best of 1s. I have had some pretty good success with it, and I do have some ideas for changes in the future, but this is the first variant, so definitely make sure to check it out if you want to support the Zoot Pals. So next up, we do have arguably my favorite archetype, I guess if you can call it, in the format, which is Calyrex with Regigigas Weezing. So this is a pretty similar take on the standard format. We are running Zacian once again, but this is a very different Zacian from the one we were running last time, where that one was very focused on being a slower version that can tank some hits and have just like a small amount of attack. This is, as you can see, a very, very offensive Zacian. We're dropping Substitute for Play Rough, and we're adding Close Combat over Sacred Sword, just with the idea of wanting to hit as hard as possible. So we are Adamant Max Speed. My plan is really, we want to hit hard and we want to hit fast. And while luck is a skill, you cannot be lucky if your opponent cannot deal damage. Or what am I trying to say? If your opponent is knocked out, it doesn't matter how much luck they have. They're not doing anything. So the idea is really to hit as hard as you can and as fast as you can. So next up, we do have Specs Calyrex-Shadow. It's one of my favorite Pokemon to use. It is just an absolute monster. I know that Focus Sash is pretty prevalent now just as an option in running Will-O-Wisp to kind of deal with things like Zacian, but I thought that we had enough good answers on the team that I felt like running Calyrex over it was, or running Calyrex with the Specs over the Focus Sash was the right way to go. So next up, we do have Thundurus. Thundurus is Defiant. It really is our main answer for Incineroar, which is picking up in a ton of popularity, and also our answer for Grimmsnarl. Having access to Brick Break is just a really nice benefit. We do have a little bit of bulk, as opposed to just running Max and Max, which I think really pays off. It lets us still get big hits, like being able to KO Calyrex, while still surviving things better, like taking a Behemoth Blade better from, from a Zacian. So having that good answer there. Also, it can deal better with Charizard, which is something that can be really scary, right? When you have G-Max Wildfire everywhere, being able to kind of win that 1v1 is always nice. So next up, we do have, I guess we have to talk about them in a pair, is Regigigas and Weezing. Regigigas essentially gives us a third restricted in my mind. It just is an absolute monster. We don't really want to max Calyrex or Zacian, just given the fact that, well, one Zacian cannot max, and Calyrex already is getting such a big boost from Specs. So having really a consistent max option, I think, is really important. I know that Gigas kind of has fallen a little bit out of popularity, just because of the fact that there are now 2 restricteds, but I think we do have such good answers into both of them that it is still a very potent and powerful threat. Obviously, as a partner, we do have Weezing. This is the standard set I use. It does just outspeed most Grimmsnarls, which is important because you can fire off a taunt before they can set up screens, which can really sort of hinder Regigigas. It also means that you're not required to go for like a max strike turn 1, and you can play a little bit more defensively. And then finally, we do have Suicune. So Suicune, I think, was an interesting choice. I really wanted a second answer into Incineroar. I don't necessarily know how relevant that is. but I thought Suicune just did a lot. It is a very good answer into Zacian and Kyogre being able, obviously, to resist a lot of their hits and survive. It does give us Tailwind, which I think is really great. Snarl as a way to drop some special attack, and then overall some really good damage with Scald and Ice Beam. So I thought having a bulky water was a really good option. I know Whimsicott is a really good common partner for this style of team. In fact, most teams just run Whimsicott instead. But I think Suicune being able to also have Snarl pressure as well as just tank hits a lot better is why I chose to go with it over a traditional option. So that is this team. Like I said, these two are the more best of 3 teams. So now let's talk a little bit about the other teams that are just hanging out and not gonna really stay for too long. So first of all, we do have this Palkia Necrozma team. I have used it before on the channel. We featured it in a tournament. So this one also fares pretty well in best of 3s. I thought it was a really good option, having dual weather as well as dual speed control with Tailwind and Trick Room. So really a lot of flexibility there. Palkia overall, I think, just is a very strong option into the meta right now. Being a good answer into non-play rough Zacian, being a good answer to Kyogre, really just gives you good defensive capability and also good offensive prowess, right? With Earth Power especially, being able to KO Zacians with Max Quake is always nice, and having the Tailwind support to set that up is huge. So Palkia pretty straightforward as our main sort of faster option. Next up, we do have Necrozma. Necrozma really functions well under Trick Room, where we have the ability to set that up ourselves and also to have it set up with Mimikyu. We do have the ability to proc that weakness policy with Shadow Sneak, so I think that is a really great option there. So yeah, having Earthquake and Sunsteel Strike, overall very good coverage, being able to boost your defenses and take advantage of Prism Armor can really make Necrozma a defensive threat. And then when you factor in the weakness policy, overall you're just a really solid option in terms of taking hits and also dealing damage. So next up, we do have Mimikyu. Mental Herb, pretty straightforward, just with the idea that trying our best to set up Trick Room. We do have to worry about something like an Alecki and a Calyrex-Shadow going for a double up into it, but I just thought that this Mimikyu set made the most sense, and obviously we don't always need to go for Trick Room. We're not a hard Trick Room team. So Will-O-Wisp, really good for getting out some damage. Taunt to stop opposing people trying to reverse our Trick Room, or also pesky status conditions, you know, that's always something to worry about. And also because of the fact that it's not Prankster, we can hit things like Grimmsnarl and Incineroar to stop potential parting shots. So Mimikyu, very bulky, just with the idea of surviving hits, not so much a big damage dealer because of the fact that we only really have one attack. Sorry, there's something on my nose. Next up, for our Sun Core, we do a Venusaur. Venusaur, very straightforward. Sleep Powder for getting that sleep off. Earth Power, Leaf Storm, Weather Ball. I did opt for Leaf Storm over Frenzy Plant, just with the idea that Venusaur can function better outside of maxing. And given the fact that we have so many things that want to max, like, it's not always the best option to max Venusaur, so saying, hey, we can kind of chill is super important. And then having Weather Ball for either that fire or water, depending on what we need, is important. Next up, we do have Torkoal. Torkoal, really great option. It sets up Sun, incredible in Trick Room, is just super slow, so super fast in Trick Room. We have a very bulky set using Body Press, so we can really get the most benefit out of that for hitting opposing Incineroars and just kind of getting good damage out there. We have Earth Power just as a really good solid answer for a lot of things that are weak to it, and then opting for Burning Jealousy over, over Heat Wave or Eruption, just with the idea that this Torkoal can function outside of Trick Room, and also Burning Jealousy being able to get up burns in a format with max boosts and so many max airstreams, I think is really huge. Finally, we do have the Wakanberry Tornadus. It is a pretty standard set. We are going with a lot of bulk, just with the idea of we want to be able to survive hits from things like Regieleki to guarantee that we can set up Tailwind. This is our Rain Dance setter, so this is how we were getting that dual weather. And then one change is we originally had Brutal Swing, but we are opting for Hurricane instead because Hurricane just is a more reliable damage option. It also means that we can potentially go for max Airstream, though probably not the best idea. And just, yeah, overall, I think a really solid option, giving that second form of speed control, being able to set up that weather, and really just doing quite a bit. So this is the team I have featured on the channel before. Not sure, I might feature it on the ladder just to kind of mix things up. But yeah, team number 3. So moving on to team number 4. This is a Xerneas Groudon team. I know that this has been a powerful archetype before, just having that very good physical coverage and that very good special coverage. So before I talk a little bit about the individual aspects of the Pokemon, I do want to highlight that the main sort of reason for this team isn't so much Xerneas and Groudon as it is Meowstic. So we're going to start there. Meowstic has Prankster and Skill Swap, so basically we have the ability to priority pass around Prankster, and as a result, that can lead to some really powerful interactions with the rest of the team. And so my idea with building was I really wanted a team that has this ability to fire off these skill swaps, but also function well without it. So first of all, Xerneas is pretty standard. We are obviously going for Geomancy. We are going for Dazzling Gleam and Moonblast. This is a very, what am I saying? It's not a very bulky, but it is a fairly offensive Xerneas with a good amount of bulk. We are hitting enough speed to outspeed Regieleki after setting up Geomancy, which I thought was the only important thing. We are getting some very good rolls onto things like Kyogre, and then we have a good amount of bulk just to try and survive some hits. So Xerneas benefits really from Meowstic and the fact that Meowstic 1 can set up a Reflect to cover Xerneas' weakness on the physical side. It does have Thunder Wave to stop things that can hit it before it sets up Geomancy, and it also does have Skill Swap to let Xerneas fire off a priority Geomancy. So in the event that you need to survive some special hits, you can just say, hey, we're going to Skill Swap up, get that special defense boost before my opponent is able to move. And also Fairy Aura just works that as long as the Pokemon is on the field, all fairy moves are getting the boost. So even if we do have Meowstic out and switching the ability, we are still going to get that priority, or not that priority, that power boost onto Xerneas. So I thought that was a really cool interaction of saying we can get that boost before our opponents can move. We can also preserve the damage. So overall, I think a really good option there. So next up, we do have Groudon. We are going with Assault Vest Groudon, mainly because of the fact that I need a better answer into Venusaur. Venusaur is a very, very tricky matchup for this team, and so opting for giving Groudon that Assault Vest and Fire Punch, really giving us some better damage into it. So we also do have High Horsepower, which I think is a reliable move if you're staring down like a Zacian in the end game. I know I've seen enough games of people losing in that 1v1 because of the fact that they have missed Precipice Blade. So having something accurate for the single matchup is really important. So Groudon functions really well with Meowstic in and of the fact that if you skill swap and you get Drought from Groudon, it will reset the weather. So if you are staring down a Kyogre, being able to change the weather once again to get that priority back is really huge. Next up, we do have Amoonguss. So this is a pretty standard Amoonguss with Spore, Pollen Puff to heal up teammates, Rage Powder to redirect, helping things like Xerneas set up. Overall, yeah, it is pretty standard. We are opting for Mental Herb, mainly just because of the fact that things like Prankster Thunderous can cause a lot of issues with Taunt. So having a way to not worry about that and then hopefully put it to sleep with Spore is really huge. So really great partner with Meowstic, mainly in the fact that if you skill swap on the Prankster onto Amoonguss, you suddenly have a priority Spore. And there are really not a lot of things that can handle priority 100% accurate sleep move. So overall, I think a really good partner for that. Once again, Reflect and Thunderwave just really helping with the status. So next up, we do have Incineroar. We are opting for a Will-O-Wisp variant because of the fact that we can skill swap Prankster onto it, and being able to fire off priority status, I think it is huge, right? Spore to put things to sleep. We have Will-O-Wisp once again to burn things to really stop the opposing Zacians. And also, when you skill swap Intimidate, the Intimidate will reset. So the ability to say, okay, we're going to fire off a second Intimidate, get a priority Will-O-Wisp. Now, what are you really going to do? And then we also do have Parting Shot. Once again, priority Parting Shot, huge. And then we have Flare Blitz. So this is a little bit more of an offensive Incineroar. And the main reason for that is in the sun, Flare Blitz is going to be able to KO the standard like 252 HP Zacian. So I thought that was really important of saying, hey, we now have a really good answer into you. After we fired off those multiple Will-O-Wisps and Intimidates and whatever, we're just going to get the straight KO instead of it being a 2-hit KO where you risk losing if they have something like Close Combat. So that is the Incineroar. And then finally, we do have Gastrodon. Gastrodon I thought was just a really good answer because of the fact that having something that can take water hits, really a big deal, particularly in that Kyogre matchup, right? Just being able to soak those up is huge. So this is a Gastrodon with optimal leftovers HP recovery, just with the idea of we want to sit on the field. We do have Protect, we do have Yawn, so once again, the ability to have priority status is huge. and then Earth Powered Ice Beam really for Landorus, and then Earth Power just for solid damage into things like Zacian. I felt like Scald wasn't really needed because of the fact that we do have Groudon, and Groudon, obviously Setting the Sun is going to negate a lot of that damage. And also, similarly, Storm Drain, the ability to pass it on to other things is huge. So Meowstic being able to say, okay, I'm going to take Storm Drain from Gastrodon and put it on something like Groudon, like all of a sudden you have a Groudon that is not taking any damage from these hits. Or you can put it on Xerneas to say, okay, Xerneas doesn't have to worry about Kyogre, you can get set up freely, and once the Geomancy is up, like, you're in a much better spot and you're getting special attack boost. So I thought it was a really good option. And we've already talked about Meowstic. Thunder Wave function similar to Grimmsnarl, obviously causes a lot of issues. Reflect, I thought, was the only necessary screen. We did opt with Fake Out. Fake Out, I think, is a potential to be changed because of the fact that there are just better options, maybe something like Expanding Force, but I just thought that Fake Out, really great option. And then Skill Swap, we've already talked about it. It also can deal with opponents' Pokemon, right? Like being able to take Defiant from Thundurus before you get hit with something like a Max Darkness, or being able to take away Chlorophyll from Venusaur to hit it really hard. So you do obviously, with that case, risk them having priority Sleep Powder, but c'est la vie. Yeah, so this is the team. I have had a lot of fun with it. This is a more best of one team because of the fact that you are using a gimmick with Meowstic, so that can cause some issue. Also note that Venusaur, like I've said several times, is a problem for this team, so that makes the matchup really tricky. It's obviously not impossible because you do have Incineroar and you do have Groudon, but it is a very tricky matchup to deal with. And finally, we are doing this team. I thought this was really fun. Shout out to Andy Love VGC for the idea of using, technically it's supposed to be Reshiram Zekrom, but it is using that fusion combo of Fusion Flare, Fusion Bolt. So for people that don't know, what happens is when one of the moves, when Fusion Flare or Fusion Bolt is immediately followed by the other, the second one will have a double in damage boost. So what happens here is Kyurem is 1 point faster than Zekrom. So if Kyurem uses Fusion Flare and then Zekrom immediately uses Fusion Bolt will have a base, it'll be base 200 instead of base 100. So I thought that was a really cool interaction. I really like the fact that we're able to use a lot of box legendaries. So one thing I want to try and do is do a team featuring the box legendaries for their respective generations every month. So we'll have like Ho-Oh-Lugia, we'll have Groudon Kyogre, obviously we have Kyurem Zekrom, Palkia, Dialga, etc. So main idea here is we have the slightly faster Kyurem, being able to fire off those big fusion flares. We do have Freeze Dry, really good answer into Kyogre, and then finally Earth Power for things like Zacian. So overall, just a really solid damage dealer because of the fact that it has just very good coverage. Fusion Flare, not commonly seen on Kyurem, so a little bit of an advantage there. Next up, we do have Zekrom. Zekrom is holding the Assault Vest, really trying to boost its special defense as much as possible, and really letting it take a lot of big hits. So that does limit us because we can't use Protect, but in return, we do have things like Bolt Strike for huge damage if we need it, Fusion Bolt if we can get the double up and we don't need to get that extra boost. We do have Dragon Claw and then Crunch for coverage. Really crunch mainly for Calyrex-Shadow, and then Dragon Claw because Max Wormwind has the potential to lower attack onto Zacian, which can be really huge, and also helps deal with the Palkia matchup. So next up, we do have Whimsicott. Whimsicott mainly here because of the fact that 2 dragons means double dragon weakness, so having a way to be immune to that is always really great. On top of that, we do have Speed Control in Tailwind, and we also do have Cotton Spore. So for people that don't know what Cotton Spore does, because it's not super common, Cotton Spore basically lowers your opponent's speed by 2 stages. And I thought this was really important because of the fact that Kyurem and Zekrom aren't necessarily the fastest Pokemon out there. And so having Tailwind isn't always going to be enough, because if my opponent matches my Tailwind, we aren't really accomplishing anything. So having a second form of that speed control I thought was really huge. So Whimsicott, pretty straightforward in terms of what it does. It's great, it's cute, it doesn't have to worry about dragon type moves, so we love it for that. Next up, we have Rotom. So Rotom is one of the answers for Zacian. I felt like Zacian is a potential big threat. Obviously, if it carries Play Rough, it deals with Zekrom, it has Behemoth Blade for Kyurem, so being able to tank a lot of those hits and fire off Will-O-Wisp I thought was huge. Overheat and Thunderbolt are really good coverage moves. It also is a very good answer into the Venusaur archetype, which is picked up a lot, and just, I thought overall Rotom offered a lot in terms of that support as well as offensive role. Next up, we have Jellicent. Jellicent, once again, is an answer for Zacian. If it doesn't have Play Rough, we are in a fantastic spot. We also do have Trick Room on the Jellicent. Like I said, we aren't the fastest pair ever, especially because Kyurem has to drop a little bit of speed to just outspeed Zekrom, because if a move goes in between Fusion Flare and Fusion Bolt, you're not going to get that boost. So having that option to set up Trick Room is always really great. And then it reverses the powers of Fusion Bolt and Fusion Flare, so suddenly now Fusion Flare is the one that's base 200 instead of Fusion Bolt. So I thought that was really cool. We do have Strength Sap just as a way, mainly to deal with Zacian, get some good recovery. Will-O-Wisp, we are trying to spread Burn because Burn is great. And then I just thought Scald was a really better coverage option instead of Water Spout, mainly because of the fact that Jellicent, while it is a good answer into Zacian, it is still taking a lot potentially from a Play Rough, so having some sort of more consistent damage I thought was great. And then finally, wrapping the team up, we do have Cinderace. Cinderace, very straightforward. We do have 4 attacking moves, Libero to change our type to really suit the situation, Sucker Punch for those pesky Calyrexes, and then we do have Bounce to become max Airstream. I just thought Cinderace was a really good fit, right, because of the fact that we're not always going to want to max Kyurem or Zekrom because we want to take advantage of the potential extra boost from those fusion moves. So having something that can consistently max if needed and also adjust its type, I thought was really important to help handle a lot of the weaknesses. So that is the final team. How successful it's going to be, we'll see. It's more of a fun team, but sometimes you got to do that. So once again, these are the 5 teams. We do have the Zoopals, which is a best of 3 team. Zacian Calyrex-Shadow, another best of 3 team. These 2 will be iterated on. We do have Palkia, Necrozma, Duskmane, which we featured before. Xerneas using that Prankster Meowstic gimmick, and finally that Fusion Flare gimmick that we love so much. So now, that's enough about the teams. Let's move on to everyone's favorite part, the giveaway. So I did put that off a little bit because I needed to finish shiny hunting, but we are finally done. So a reminder that first prize is shiny Grimmsnarl, second prize is shiny Umbreon, and third prize is shiny Porygon 2. So in first place, we do have Sunbolt. Congratulations for winning the shiny Grimmsnarl. In second place for that shiny Umbreon, we have Wimmy Pariah. So once again, huge congratulations for that. And finally, in third place, that shiny Porygon 2 is going to some random gamer. So congratulations to all 3 of you. Please let me know in the comments your Discord ID if you have one, so we can set up a trade via Discord. If you don't have one, we can figure out something else. Just let me know what methods work for you. In worst case, we can kind of use the YouTube comments. Not ideal, but it is what it is. And as for the giveaway next month, we are going back to 3 prizes. I promise they will be ready at the start of the month. In first place, it is going to be a shiny Incineroar. In second place, it is a shiny Rotom Heat. And in third place, it is a shiny Gastrodon. So these are the 5 teams for the month. We're going to be laddering with them. I hope people have success with them. And yeah, with that, until next time, I hope all of you are wonderful, and I'll see you then.